Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel. Donita and Editor here.
Hello.
And today we have a wonderful guest. Her name is Jennifer Hill. And Jennifer is a radiant and kind visionary for humanity and a leading businesswoman. Thank you, Jennifer, for being here with us today and welcome to our channel. Welcome here.
Thank you so much, ladies. It's such a pleasure to be here with you and your audience. I'm grateful and happy to see how I can serve.
Thank you. Well, first, would like to ask, who is Jennifer? Just we keep it simple and organic. And, I've known you for a few years, and you are an inspiration to so many, and you do so much for so many. So, but today, probably there are people that don't know who Jennifer is. So, would you share a little bit about who you are and your passion and your
hmm
heart and your
Heart
inspiration,
desire.
the heart's desires.
Yeah. My heart's deepest desire is to be a contribution to humanity. In fact, I was messaging with one of the coaching clients I work with earlier this week, and she said, Jen, what are your top 5 values? I'm trying to put mine together right now. And I realized that one of my very tippy top values is contribution. And it wasn't always this way. I struggled very much when I was younger. I struggled just to be a human. If you've seen any of my talks online, if you go to jenniferkhill.com, you'll catch a speech that I recently gave where I start off by saying, Hi, I'm Jennifer Cahill, and I have a secret to share. I'm a bit of a recovering jerk. And people laugh because they see me now, and I spend 2 hours a day in prayer and meditation and reflection. And I like to think of it as being a beacon of hope for anybody out there who maybe you've made some mistakes. Maybe you've said some hurtful things or been hurtful to yourself or to others. I know I certainly was for the first 3 or 4 decades, 3 decades of my life. And then thank God I had somebody once upon a time who, in a personal development class, looked at me and she said, You are a nasty thing. You are one of the most powerful women I've ever met in my life. And yet, you know what? You're like Godzilla with a huge tail swinging behind you, knocking down buildings wherever you go. Except, you know what? Those aren't buildings, those are people whose lives you're destroying. And she proceeded to tell my boyfriend at the time I was 23 to leave me. It was what I needed. And truth be told, it was what I needed. She's still a friend of mine 20 years later and changed my life in that moment. And I actually had a conversation with somebody else recently. And I think that we don't realize the difference between strength versus force. So when we own our strength, then there is equal room for every one of us to be powerful. However, if we come from force, then one person is naturally diminishing the other person, and you don't have that same equanimity and space for power to exist. Does that make sense?
Yes, it's beautiful and so true.
Makes sense. So I've never even said it in quite those words before, but that's a little bit about me, is that I'm a recovering jerk and I've evolved. And people say all the time, well, Jennifer, why do you spend 2 hours a day in prayer and meditation? So I don't destroy myself in the world. I know I have the capacity for great darkness and great light. And, I tried to take my own life 3 times between the ages of 18 to 21, which I've been very outspoken about. And it was only 6 years ago that a lot of that got illuminated for me when I discovered I was high functioning on the spectrum, or what some people would call autistic or neurodiverse. And that really gave me for the first time in my life, I was 37 years old, I think. I went through a divorce, sold my first company, and got diagnosed as being autistic. And I was like, okay, trifecta there. I can deal with this. And it actually gave me permission to be, because my whole life I felt like I couldn't figure out how to be normal, whatever air quotes normal means to you. And it was an uphill battle most of my life. And then when I just owned my oddities and eccentricities and the things that I do or don't do, and forgave myself and let go of the shame and guilt of all of the mistakes, for lack of a better word, that I made when I was younger, that then led me to what I now teach people around the world, which I call the golden triangle of connection. And really, that begins with deep, meaningful connection to self. And when we have that deep, meaningful connection for self, that allows for connection to others and connection to purpose. However, if we don't have that connection to self, everything else collapses like a house of cards.
Beautifully said.
That's also so true.
I don't even know what I say, ladies. When I do interviews like this, I just ask to be a channel, and my Jennifer Cahill human brain that's trying to look good, I set her off to the side and I say, you can sit there, you can come back when we're done. But I just ask to have wisdom flow through me that I don't even know where it comes from. Even the thing I just mentioned, the golden triangle of connection. I have a podcast called Regarding Consciousness. And a friend of mine, Justin Breen, who's a best-selling author, we did a podcast a while back. And after the recording, Justin is amazing. I mean, he's a genius and also very intense. And after the interview, we stopped recording. He said, "That's it, Jennifer. That's everything. You're a soul amplifier. I'm a soul simplifier. And what you just said is going to change the world." And I was like, "What did I just say, Justin?" I don't remember. And he said, "You just said the golden triangle of connection. Go back, re-listen to it, and you're going to do everything with that." And mark his words. I have given probably countless speeches, numerous podcast interviews, written articles about it. And so I'm doing a lot of talks now for the last 3 months since Justin illuminated that for me. So I just surrender and ask for wisdom to flow through me.
That is so beautiful and powerful and inspirational. This is what I feel we all here right now, of coming home to who we are, of self-accepting ourselves, of really tending
like
to
self-discovering, like you said, who
exploring.
Yes.
But I was just like, I'm so intrigued because everything happened to you during when you began your Uranus opposition. That's like the mid-age crisis, like generally when everything just, it's a new beginning. And we go through many new beginnings and many new births throughout our lives. And it's interesting as well what you said, you're Godzilla, because we have a joke between us. Editor, she has the tendency of being Godzilla.
I feel you, sister. Been there, done that. I try to keep Godzilla in a cage, but every now and again, if I haven't slept, if I haven't meditated, if I'm hungry, tired, whatever, then Godzilla starts to get in. And then everybody, my husband and everybody's like trying to squish Godzilla, including me, back into the cage from which we try to keep Godzilla hidden.
But it's also part of that, you're accepting that and you're loving even the
Yes.
Godzilla in you, right?
And
Yeah,
I think it's the trick to realize, okay, I'm going towards the Godzilla mode right now. I need to do something with the inner to not go there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up, Edita. I've only now learned, at least my version of Godzilla is in autism, what they call an autistic meltdown. When I get overstimulated and I can't process something or something doesn't make logical sense to me, it's like I go into meltdown. It's like DEFCON 4 does not compute. I'm like a computer that says does not compute. Like I cannot make sense of it. So now self-regulation, if any of you out there have a Godzilla, maybe you're neurodiverse, and these are two separate things, mine just happens to coincide with both, then I encourage you to learn tools for self-regulation. This is one of the cornerstones. I use heart focused breathing, and it's having that self-awareness. So I'm a huge fan of heart focused breathing by Heart Math. And 9 times out of 10 now, I can calm Godzilla and like literally like sing a lullaby to Godzilla and just put Godzilla back in the cage and everything's fine. But what's funny is every now and again, it still happens. I'm still human. I was at the dentist about 4 months ago, and for 3 years, I had had Invisalign on during COVID. And the dentist was a lovely woman. I mean, dental work in Portugal was magnifique, wonderful people. So we get to the final stage, and she says, "Okay, we're taking everything off today. We're going to get you fitted for your bottom retainer, and then you'll come back for your top retainer on Monday." I'm like, "Cool, great, awesome." So she's in there, she's taking off the attachments and all of it. And I do a lot of shows and a lot of speaking, and I was going into like 3 or 4 in-person public speaking things and some keynotes. And all of a sudden she says, "Okay, we're done, we're finito." I'm like, "Okay." And she's like, "Yeah, and the thing on your back of your teeth, you'll get used to it." And I was like, "What?" And she's like, "Yeah, we put a permanent retainer in on the back of your teeth. Don't you remember I told you we were going to do that 3 years ago?" And I started to talk about like autistic meltdown ensuing, DEFCON 4, not going to survive this. So I started to calm myself, started to breathe in and out through the center of my heart. I could feel the meltdown happening. I was like, ma'am, I need a moment. Please leave the room right now. And I had the wherewithal. I was like, I just need a minute. Give me 5 minutes. Please leave the room. So I'm there. I'm trying to do the heart focused breathing. 30 seconds later, she and her team come back in. And I'm like, no, you really don't understand. I've never mentioned this before. I'm autistic. I'm going to a meltdown. I can calm myself and self soothe, but I need your cooperation. I need 5 minutes. Like, I know mentally, physiologically, it's the three brain system. My amygdala is going bananas right now. This is not safe. We are going to die. We must abort mission. That's what's going on in my head as I'm getting ready for all these big talks I'm about to give. And I'm feeling this weird thing that's a permanent retainer they just put in the back of my teeth. And so she leaves the room again. 30 seconds later returns. Ladies, I have to say, I started crying. I could not, I did everything in my power. Number one, I knew it was coming on. So I started to self-soothe and self-regulate. Number two, I asked for what I needed. I knew what I needed was 5 minutes. It's all it normally takes, and I can self-soothe. But at the end of the day, I still did wind up having an upset because of the fact that it kept being interrupted. And so it's just taught me that, we're still human. And no matter how, even if you do meditate 2 hours a day and have tools for self-regulation, the next question is, if you have some sort of upset or meltdown with yourself or a loved one, or even a friend or a colleague, how quickly can you get back to neutral? So as much as it did throw me off for about 20 minutes that day, by the time I left the dentist office, I was fine and I held no grudge, was totally fine and complete about it. But that's the question. I get asked this a lot about different thought leaders around the world, is what's the difference? Like somebody like a Deepak Chopra or somebody like Greg Braden or Bruce Lipton, who are these prolific thought leaders. It's not to say any of us don't get mad. It's that you still might have a reaction, but how quickly can you rebound? How resilient can you be post a meltdown or activation or whatever it is? And maybe there are some people like the Dalai Lama and a few other folks who don't get triggered, for lack of a better word. And that's the biggest thing. Even then, she didn't do anything to me. The dentist didn't do anything. In those moments, I used words like, I notice I'm allowing myself to get triggered. Or with my husband, if something happens, honey, I'm noticing I'm allowing myself to get triggered right now. Can I please have some space?
That's the key. Give yourself this is what I also do. Give myself the time just to calm myself down. And definitely, more we practice, then it gets better.
It's beautifully, it's like in a nutshell, self. You in a nutshell, in a personal it's personal experience. You shared about how important it is to be true to who you are and honor your feelings and honor what you need, and not compromise your needs, not compromise your desires and your basic needs. And how many people these days are still compromising from the lack of the conditioning, the upbringing, the society. So it's so important of creating the space and just listening to what you need and actually having the courage
to say it,
to claim it, to say it, to ask for it. It's so powerful and so beautiful. So thank you for sharing your dentist Godzilla experience, because it's, as you were talking, I could feel the Godzilla tail. I could see it, visionary, but it was more like a rattlesnake warning.
Yeah.
It's like a rattlesnake tail.
It's ready to strike. That's true. It's like sitting there hovering and like ready to strike. Yeah, it's a warning sign. It's like the warning sign, just like, if a heater is about to overheat, there are warning signs. It's like, okay, it's getting dangerous. It's getting more dangerous. It's about to blow. And it's about allowing for our humanness. We're all human at the end of the day. And one of the things I admire most about my husband, which is really incredible, he is so patient. Like, we're at a hotel in northern Italy recently, and he cut his foot on broken glass in the middle of the sauna there. And he's just like, honey, it's okay. And I'm like, Mama Bear Godzilla. I'm like, that is not okay. There's glass on the floor in there. Other people are going to get hurt. And he's like, my love, do you think they're doing the best they can? And I was like, fine. fine. They're doing the best thing. You know, and having good influences, I think that's really important, is our community and our tribe. If we're around people who maybe like to be reactive as well, like to gossip, etc., not bad. It's just we choose our company because it's nice to have. It's funny, my husband and I have different personalities in some ways, but similar motivators. That's what we focus on at OptiMatch, the company I run, is we found that two people can have opposite personalities or different, but as long as you share motivators, then that creates psychological safety. And everything we're talking about ties into psychological safety. How can we all feel more psychologically safe than ourselves and then with one another?
Yeah. It's like surround, you become the people you are surrounding yourself with. So surrounding with the people, like listening, paying attention to your inner guidance, to your inner wisdom. It's like, okay, this person, if you feel good around some people, you don't feel good. So you surround yourself with people that make your body purr and your heart sing, and make you happy. Because that's coherence. It's wonderful, it's beautiful. So there's so many tools and so much magic you're sharing with us today. And the powerful reminder that we are all human, you know.
And we were reading, through your all the information you sent it to us, and that was a beautiful thing to me. At least you helped to build two schools for kids. Would you talk about that? Because to me, that's is like this is really like a heart connection with the rest of the world.
And
Yeah, when
giving.
I owe credit to my ex-husband on this. He gets all the credit on this. I was reading a book called Half the Sky by Nicholas Kristof and his wife in 2010, I think it was, or 11. And it's a beautiful book. They're Pulitzer Prize winning journalists, and it's about how women hold up half the sky. And it got into some very controversial and upsetting topics long before the Me Too movement about female genital mutilation, sex trafficking, horrific things that most of us don't want to think about. And as I read that book, I cried myself to sleep reading every single night as I cried myself to sleep as I read the book. And fast forward, my husband at the time, my ex-husband, read the book and he said, well, why don't we just build schools? It says in here, if you contribute $35,000, and that's enough to build a school. And at the time I was donating, anytime I have a company, I donate 10% of the company's profits after costs to charities. So I was already donating that amount of money to charities from our company anyways. And I said, why don't we take money from your company and build schools? And I was like, huh, that's an interesting idea. So off we went to the races. We went to Cambodia first. And I had originally wanted to build there. A friend of mine had built a school there, but I quickly discovered it wasn't quite as simple as one would think, because when you're building a school, it's not just about delivering the money. It's about having somebody you trust there, having relationships with the ministries of education, having relationships with the head of the villages, agreeing to send their children in equal amounts of boys and girls to the school. And I gave up. When I went to Cambodia, I didn't trust that the $35,000 I was willing to write a check for would go to the kids. And so I kind of gave up on it for 6, 7 years. And then fast forward, I was in a thought leadership group in 2017 in Monterey, California. And there were about 100 of us in a room, and there was a breakout section. And in the breakout session, the question we were asked to ask one another, very simple inquiry, was, what matters to you? And the young gentleman sitting next to me posed me this question. And I said, building schools. He said, great. Are you building them? I said, no. He said, why not? I said, I gave up on it. It was too hard. And he said, I invite you to share that with the group. So I got my courage. I stood up in front of the group. In front of 100 people, I said this. And a woman named Linda Burgess stood up across the room and said, call Skylar at Build on Monday, and he can help you, and he's trustworthy. And so I called Skylar, and a few months later, we were off to the races. My mom, dad, ex-husband, and I went to build the first school together in November of 2017. Yeah, 2017 in Nepal. And it was unbelievable. I mean, getting to physically be there, no running water. Funny little story there. I mean, everything. I mean, it was extraordinary. You have no toilets, you have no running water, no showers. I remember there was like, they draped tarp over a tree that was our shower, and you had a bucket and some soap. And so I'm like, you've been building the school, like digging in the sand and working with rebar and all this. And I desperately needed a shower, right? Which is a bucket and a thing of soap. So the tarp thing is hanging over the tree. I get naked. Naked is the day that Venus, that famous painting, and a wind comes by and blows the tarp. And here I am in this village. I was mortified because it's a very conservative village, but it was still funny in retrospect. And it was just extraordinary getting to hear the hopes and wishes and dreams of the villagers, getting to do gender equality talks with them, and to meet the chiefs of these villages and to see how important it was for them. And my father, who just passed away in February, went with me to build the second school in Senegal in November of 2019. And he was just such an extraordinary man. He was an alcoholic his whole life. He was a firefighter who, pulled kids out of burning buildings. And long ago, my dad and I had made peace around that. And so for him to go to the middle of a remote village, it's a dry village where there's no alcohol, and to give up alcohol for 5-6 days to be there building the village, building in the school in the village in this remote area of West Africa with me, I just will never be able to say enough how proud of my dad I was that he did that. And the moment he found out that we had donated all this money and raised this money for the school, but then we found out that they didn't have money for books. So my dad said, well, that's not acceptable. So he found somebody in the village, like one person in the whole village who had a car, to drive us to the nearest neighboring town an hour away to go be sure that the kids had books and chalkboards and everything they needed. And it was just really extraordinary to get to do that with him.
What a beautiful story.
I know. Because a lot of us talk about help, but actually we don't do any like physical approach to the real help. So that's why when I was reading all of the information you sent it to us, that really like stood up for me, and I was like, wow, that's really, I mean, to me, this is who you are, really. To me, you are always like,
You see, you kind of left us speechless because
yes,
it's just there's so much yumminess that
yeah,
is we're feeling right now, and you're such an inspiration, and it's like not to like to put you on a pedestal, but just a reminder, because we're all human and we're all here, but you are here to remind us that anything is possible.
yes,
There's nothing. It's like anything is possible. So
yeah,
the courage, the determination, the willingness, because I feel that you've moved through life, after the the rebirth, the first one, you're moving through life through your heart.
Thank you, ladies. I receive it. And that is my dream. It's funny, even in my Gene Keys, if nobody has tried it, one of my favorite tools to use I do it for Uber drivers, random strangers. Go to Gene Keys, GeneKeys.com, and you can get your free profile there. And it says your purpose. It says what your purpose is, what your shadow side is, what your prosperity is tied to, what's going on for you in the dating world, and what your romance is tied to. And part of my Gene Keys, which is tied into human design, it's Richard Rudd's interpretation of it, says that I am here to help people realize that it's safe to live the life of your dreams. And I think that's everything I do. Is I do everything I can to have uplifting conversations, post uplifting content, and to also be really transparent and candid with people that it doesn't matter, even if you're living a life of your dreams, you're still going to go through hardships. You know what? Planes are still going to be delayed. You're still going to come down with illnesses here and there. Yet it's the grace and aplomb with which we do it that defines us. It's like, can you still go through mishaps and be patient and kind? And my husband teaches me that every day.
Yeah. What is your I'm a big fan of Jinki, so I'm diving head first, and I mean I'm deep in it for my personal exploration and my clients. But I'm curious, what are your numbers? Like, what's your activation? Do you
Give me
remember?
a second here. I'll pull it up and tell you. I don't know. I want to say it's like 39, 35. I don't know it off the top of my head. I know
Oh,
my
that's
human
okay.
design is I'm a 6'2" projector. I'm terrible with it. It's funny.
Are
I
you a
love numbers.
6'2" projector?
Yeah, I'm a 6'2" projector in human
Um,
design. What are you?
I'm a 6-2 emotional generator, and editor is a 6-3 emotional generator.
And the 6, for those of you, that's a whole other thing. That's why I like to recommend Gene Keys to people, because if you don't know human design, unless you've read a book or something on it, it can be very, very hard to know what that all means.
Yeah.
But what I love is that Gene Keys explains it. Hold on, I'm pulling up my Gene Keys so I can tell you what it says. Let's see here, March. Yeah, so it's the 6s in the human design. It means that we're here to help humanity, and also that we have to go through great hardships in our life. I don't know if you ladies know that, but that's one of the defining characteristics of the 6s, is that we go through really great hardships, like, you know, traumatizing things. And many of us who have 6s sometimes might not even make it because it's so challenging and traumatizing. And yet we're here to be role models for humanity if we do our work right. All right, so here we go. This is how easy it is to pull up your Gene Keys. 37, that's what it is. So my life's work is 37 because of the current dramatic shift in the world's social climate. This can be a very challenging, exciting time for someone like you. I have to keep letting go of traditional views of things. A new vision of humanity and community wants to come through me. Then I have Gene Key 40, Gene Key 5, and Gene Key 35. I thought I had 35. So those are my main ones.
Oh, the activation ones, right? The top. Okay. Beautiful. I'll actually have a look at yours because I'm just curious.
Yeah,
About, you know.
it's helpful to learn that. You know, what's so beautiful about Gene Keys and human design, funny quick story about this. I was in Beverly Hills at my friend's house for dinner, and I don't drive, so I always Uber everywhere. I gave up. I realized of my life gifts, one of them is not driving, nor has it ever been. So I gave up driving about 6 years ago. And there was this young kid who picked me up at 10:30 at night from my friend's house in Beverly Hills, and we start to drive towards Santa Monica, where I'm staying with a friend. And he says to me, ma'am, you know, you get to a point in life where you're, ma'am, my life is over. I'm going to be 21 this week. And it must have been a year or two ago exactly, because his birthday was the first week of July. And he's like, ma'am, my life is about to be over. I'm going to be 21 next week. I was like, kiddo, your life has just begun. I said, first, let's start with your birthday. So I pull up his numerology, one of my favorite websites, tokenrock.com, start telling him his numerology, which is life path 5, which is the same as me. And he's like, oh my gosh, that's so interesting. I said, do you know the time you're born? At 10:30 at night, he calls his poor mother, gets his birth time. Next thing you know, I'm running his human design, his Gene Keys for him on the car ride to Santa Monica. And it was the sweetest thing, ladies. I get out of the car and he says, ma'am, can we be friends on Instagram or grab coffee one day? You helped me realize I have a purpose. And I was like, oh, I just want to pinch your cheeks. You're so sweet.
And
But
my life is not over.
yeah, no, and he got that, like, I think so many young people right now don't realize that there is purpose and meaning. And in fact, that ties into the building the school thing. So there was a story I once read that my co-founder Julian shared with me, our co-founder of OptiMatch. And Julian told the story of the biosphere. Have you ladies heard of the biosphere in Arizona that was created in the late 1980s?
No, I did not.
I heard about something. I'm not sure if that's the one. Anyway, yeah, go ahead because that's interesting.
Long story short, in the late 1980s, scientists wanted to discover, could we habitate another planet? So they created Biosphere. I think the exact name was Biosphere 2 that they created somewhere in Arizona, which was a biosphere that was meant to mimic life on Earth, that was self-sustaining for growing plants, trees, animals, sustaining food. And I think it was like 8 scientists in the biosphere. Well, everything went remarkably well. The plants grew, the animals grew, the humans did great, but one thing did not work out the way the scientists planned. Would you like to know what that was?
Yes.
The trees, ladies, grew faster and taller than they ever would in a natural environment. However, before they hit maturity, they fell over. Any guesses as to why?
No.
Okay. So the
When?
reason trees fell over was wind. There was no wind. In creating a perfect environment for the trees to grow, the scientists didn't factor in wind, which in natural environments, wind causes what's called stress wood to develop in the trees, so that as they grow tall, that they grow stronger on the outside, and it causes their roots to grow deeper. Well, it turns out we as human beings have the same thing, but it's called eustress, which is EUSTRESS. And eustress is a healthy form of stress that helps us to become resilient when the winds of change come blowing, so that way we can be strong in the face of adversity. So what really shook me when I was in Nepal and building that first school was these kids. Here were these kids in the middle of nowhere, 2 hours from this remote airport that was in the furthest northwest corner of Nepal. And the kids had nothing. They didn't eat meat because you couldn't afford it. Like eggs were a luxury if your chickens produced eggs, and maybe once a month, if you were lucky enough, you got meat. And yet the kids were so much happier there. And I realized that that ties into a Kabbalistic concept, which is if we give children what we think they need and we give them iPads and toys and this and that, they have no chance to earn happiness and to earn that strength and that eustress and that stress would to grow tall as adults. And I think what we're seeing happening on a global scale right now is that we created an environment with too little wind for the young people here. And I think that's causing them to fall over as adults, just like that young man I met at 21.
I agree.
Big time, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's obstacle challenges are helping us grow
Yes.
and evolve.
Yeah, kind of the old style of childhood.
Yeah, the childhood we grew up in, right?
I mean, I think was very healthy. Go outside, play with the sand, just observe the nature, just connect with all of it. And at school, kids will have a plenty time spent on the computers and all those gadgets. So I think after school, it's good. It's healthy to go outside and just discover a different world.
And stay connected and connect to yourself.
Yeah.
Because being always on devices as children, you disconnect from who you are. You kind of forget. You don't evolve within intimately as you would if you just play and explore and imagine the world, and you don't have anything and you imagine the world.
Yeah.
And you're happy with what is simplicity. So yeah, so to everyone as well, as gene keys, human design, astrology, Akashic records, they're all magical ways, tools. I call them different languages that literally delivers and bring the same story. It's like the story of your getting to get to know yourself. It's just delivering and it's explaining who you are. It's helping to get to know yourself through all these different modalities. So definitely get curious if it resonates and explore your gene key chart, your human design chart. And what else would you recommend, Jen?
Well, if people want, you can always try our OptiMatch survey as well, which is om.app/survey, and that assesses your motivators. So I have made it my life's work to study human beings for the last 2 decades. And in addition to studying human design and gene keys, I'm a huge fan of just understanding how we align as human beings. So that's what originally sparked this idea of what if we could create a software that tells you how well two people match. And actually, Juanita knows, because we were working together on a project called Om Heals a couple of years ago, which is how it was originally birthed. We created a marketplace of 100 wonderful healers and therapists from around the world called om-heals.com. We tested the algorithm there first and achieved an 87% satisfaction rate. And then after doing that, all of a sudden we had people saying, well, if you really can match people that well, don't just do it in one way, do it for all of humanity, do it with communities, do it with businesses. And so we're very, very thankful. So I love all of those. I love numerology. I'm trying to think of any other. I have to say, human design and gene keys are two of my favorite profiling tools, aside from what we do at OptiMatch. And the other one that I love just from a spiritual standpoint is Kabbalah. So that's why I'm actually in Milan at the moment, is for a Kabbalistic retreat that they're hosting here. And the Kabbalistic tools I've learned over the last, 11, 12 years have been life-changing. So big fan of Kabbalah, big fan of Alison Armstrong's work. And I certainly wouldn't be where I'm at today if it hadn't been for all of their contributions.
Beautiful. And of course, I'm going to add all your links and everything else you'd like to share with us in links, your numerology, your favorite numerology website as well. Yes. For everyone. And is there anything else you would like to share with to leave us, to our listeners?
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you would like to share?
Believe in yourself, love yourself, and cherish yourself. When you learn to cherish yourself, as my best friend told me when I was going through that divorce a few years ago, she said, Jen, you deserve to find somebody who will cherish you. Though first, you need to cherish yourself. And that is one of the greatest pieces of wisdom that was ever given to me from all the classes, all the books, anything I've ever read. If we all cherished ourselves, we would be much more resilient in the face of any obstacles, adversities, negative things said about us. Because if we believe in ourselves, if we love and cherish ourselves, then that opens up endless roads of gold to lead us down the path to our purpose.
And I have to ask this question because it brought me up, because some people, they'll say, yes, I know that, and it's beautiful, but how do you do that?
Great question. Inner child work. If you follow my YouTube channel at Jennifer K as in Kite Hill, Hill, you can find on my channel an inner child meditation I created for a mastermind I facilitate on there. And it's really beautiful. I do it every single day. We began the show by talking about, cultivating, understanding what we need, how we might be a jerk. The main way I protect myself, I guess, and others from being a jerk is every day I do exactly the same exercise that I share in that video that I created on YouTube, where I talk to the little girl within me and I say, hi, sweetheart. Mine likes to be called sweetheart. So step one, you got to figure out how your inner child wants to be addressed. Step two is every morning, as soon as I'm finished meditating, it's part of my meditative process. I talk to my little girl and I say, how are you feeling today? And ladies, I cannot tell you the amount of times I am shocked that I am sad, angry, or upset with someone. And I'll be like, how are you doing, sweetheart? And she's like, I'm sad. And I'm like, shit, we're sad? What are we sad about? I'm really sad about blah, 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 blah. And imagine if I didn't attend to that, that would likely show up in some sort of outburst in the real world, which I think is, if you look at all of us as human beings, we are not dealing with upset 45-year-olds or 50-year-olds or 70-year-olds or 25-year-olds. We are dealing with upset 4 and 5-year-olds. And if we all tended and loved and cherished those upset 4 and 5-year-olds, then we would have a much happier, more peaceful world. So I'm a huge advocate of inner child work.
Beautiful. Thank you so much Thank you so much, Jan, for being here today, for sharing your heart and your wisdom and all the magical stories and tools and experiences. You're a true inspiration to all of us, really. It's as we step into the new way of living, because we're all stepping collectively, The world is shifting radically right now, so you are just magical for us, for yourself. So thank you for doing your work. Thank you for loving yourself and for accepting yourself and for leading by example.
Yeah, thank you, ladies. And you know what? There's still going to be days, no matter how much work you do, where you might just feel like crap and you might be sad or angry. Be with it. Give yourself permission. It's not about being perfect. It's a good reminder, no matter how evolved you are, no matter how much spiritual work you do, give yourself permission. If you're having a hard day, let yourself have a hard day. Call a friend if you need to, curl up in a ball, do something that's good for you to refill your bucket with the love and energy and attention that you deserve, and just give yourself permission to feel exactly how you feel. So thank you, ladies. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Jan.
Thank you very much.
And to everyone, thank you very much for listening. Please subscribe, comment, and share. It will help more than you think to grow our channel and bring more amazing guests for you and for everyone. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Until next time, keep well. Bye for now.
Bye.